Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have Steve back with me. It's been a little bit of a break. I know, Steve, you've been working super hard with everything. Thanks so much for coming back.
Hey, Landon, thank you. I appreciate getting back on the show with you. And yeah, we've been certainly mired down in a lot of audit work, but we got deal pipeline in the background at all times. But it's a pleasure to see you again. And why don't we get right into it?
Yeah, sure. So I got a bunch of questions. I got some from my audience. So we'll just jump right into that. So first off, I have someone just wondering if you went the extra mile and applied for the FDA approval for the Kai saliva test, or is that going to only be emergency approved?
That's actually a really great question. It's not even one that's been posed to me before at all. We're very aware of the distinction between EUA and full FDA authorization. So we actually have a plan around that. We believe that as we look at our Kai saliva test kit program, we work with, there's a third-party medical device manufacturer for the actual specimen collection piece of it. But we also are working on developing our own dedicated version of those products. It's those ones that we would seek FDA authorization, not just the FDA EUA, but full authorization. And that would become a proprietary product that not only would that product be available for our lab to process, but in fact, any lab, in the case of the United States with the FDA, it's an FDA or CLIA approved lab, any lab would be able to distribute that test if it was a Kai medical device. So there's actually a bit of a longer term strategy related to the saliva collection device, because once you have that saliva collection, I'll call it method, it can be used for a variety of test procedures, not just COVID-19, because saliva is a method to collect RNA that can be then researched, validated, and tested through our scientists at our labs or the future labs that we'll have.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. Another great question. Do you think that your Kai saliva test and Kai Care could go onto a website such as Expedia, somewhere that you actually book trips and you could have your advertisements in there just so it's super accessible when someone's going to be traveling?
So the answer is yes. So we are working on a number of, we'll call them, I think the right word would be call them like referral agreements. Right? Like they're not really even like a reseller. So you take these big online portals, whether it's airlines or telemedicine, or in this case, you referred to travel portals. So they have the ability to serve a landing page or an offer for an at-home, saliva RT-PCR test, our Kai saliva test kit. And they're really referring the customer or their traffic to us, and our whole infrastructure is built. Our e-commerce platforms for kaitest.com, kaitest.ca, we have inventory, we have fulfillment, we have the whole lab, processes have been in place for a long time. So we can refer that traffic can be referred to us, and then we can handle it and ultimately sell the product to the consumers. So to that end, we are in active conversations with a variety of partners, potential partners that have traffic. And we're very much focused on travel. And because we believe that our product is ideally suited to help the travel industry get back. And so we're very active in those types of scenarios. And I think that we have an opportunity in the not too distant future to, update your audience with some successes in that exact method that you're talking about. So we've identified that as a key business development approach because whoever brought the question forward to you, it's quite logical, right? It makes a lot of sense that we should be talking to these partners, and so we are. I can reassure everybody that we are.
Yeah, no, it makes a whole lot of sense. And you can for sure get a lot of traffic because people are going to be needing that. So then why not just kind of give them to you, because you're going to be doing a service that they'll eventually need. And it's way easier for them to find when it's right there. So yeah, no,
Well, it actually, what it comes down to is it's the difference between a traveler booking a trip or not booking a trip. And so if you're a referral site like an Expedia your question came from or was about, is that Expedia is a commission-based platform. If the user doesn't book that flight that they're looking at because they've decided that they're not sure how they could possibly get a COVID test while they're traveling to get back home, and they bounce off Expedia, Expedia loses that customer. They will not earn their commission on that transaction. So we actually become an enabler for a platform like Expedia or Hotwire or others that are agents to book travel.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about it like that, but yeah, no, that makes like a ton of sense.
Yeah, so that's why we're working on those ones.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I'm excited to hear some updates on that.
Okay.
Will you guys be appointing a chief medical officer, a CMO? And what are your plans to decide with who oversees your clinics and physicians and pharma medics?
So we have Dr. Jordan Rabinowitz and Dr. Aviv Zimmerman out of Toronto as part of our acquisition. So those two physicians, really co-lead that for us in the Canadian market at this time. I'm extremely pleased with how they have evolved so quickly into public company life. They are really doing a great job on business development and leading the expansion of our clinics. I mean, it's hard work to get clinics open, and we have to negotiate leases with landlords, and we've got pharmacy partners that we work with, and we don't always control their speed, and we've got new acquisitions in our pipeline at a whole host of various stages, from early discussions to late discussions. So at this stage, I'm very comfortable with how our leadership structure for our healthcare clinics in Canada are being managed. To the extent that our scale becomes whatever it could become, in North America, in the future, and it's appropriate to, identify or put another leadership layer in place for that, then we'll take those steps at that time. Right now, we're not having any issues with leadership on the medical side. And the other thing that we're finding is that as we are talking to these prospects and targets, they always come with ownership that are medical doctors. And we're seeing a lot of organizational development on the talent side happen because of the acquisition pipeline that we have. And that's what happened with Dr. Jordan and Dr. Aviv. They came through acquisition, but we had plans, pre-closing. We already knew the type of leadership that they could bring. And as I started out with in this question, I couldn't be happier with the progress that these young doctors have made. They're very impressive.
Yeah, and so I'm sure that their leadership could also have an impact now, if you decide to expand more into the U.S. market as well, and their help with that. Would they be helping in the U.S. market too? With anything?
So I think ultimately I need them to stay focused on Canada.
Yeah.
They've got potentially years of work. We know we've got some stated objectives to get through 10, 20, 30 locations in Canada. That's a lot of work. They're up for it. I think we we're able to really leverage their knowledge and capabilities, and an opinion and advice, as we'll turn to the U.S. markets, later this year. But in terms of what I think I need them to be focused on, it will be at this point in time. We cannot lose our focus on it, because we've really kind of found ourselves a lot of kind of attention, a lot of momentum in the marketplace. And, I can't share all the pipeline work that we have, but I certainly can convey confidence to you and your followers that, we have the deepest, best pipeline of growth that I've ever had with this company.
Wow, that's super exciting to hear, because I know when you say that's big. So that reassures me, and I'm sure it reassures all my fellow followers. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Talking about medical records, EMR, and whether or not we have a plan, how this works along with telemedicine or something similar to Well Health. I'm not sure if you have heard about them as well.
I'm very aware of who they are. And so, obviously I follow them closely. Hamid at Well Health, is a very successful business person, and they've got a great company that they're building also. Your questions about, EMR systems, telemedicine, are we laser focused on that. We are looking at really approaching it from two strategies. I'm absolutely looking at the concept of acquisition of our own platform that would become our own platform because we acquired it. We've looked at transactions that range from, they're really only at the early design stage to they're active, and they're taking traffic, and then kind of looking at everything in between there and trying to make some decisions on what's the best path forward. The other thing that we've done is I have invested in already commencing development of our own telemedicine platform that would feed into an EHR platform as well, or they could tie in together. I've got a great group of IT partners, some of which have worked with me for the better part of a decade. And I felt that while we're looking for acquisitions that could potentially make sense in this space, I felt that we should take a run at our own proof of concept. Excuse me. We don't have to spend a great deal of money to really move the development needle quite far. And in fact, it kind of came about because we were being presented with telemedicine opportunities. As we started kind of approaching due diligence on them, we were discovering that they're really very early stage, and that in fact they are only what I would consider in dev or development stage. In fact, they weren't even live on app stores. They were only available in test flight, which is when you're developing tech and apps, you run your dev versions through test flight so that our internal folks can play with it. So I provided some funds to our developers and said, okay, go spend 8 weeks. Let's see how far you can get it. And I don't want to just go and spend tons of shareholder money and dilute on an acquisition if we can find a path of development that is quite fast and we control the IP, we own the IP. And so I felt it was worthwhile doing that, kind of almost like dual paths, simultaneous paths, and not discount the fact that we may have the ability to bring to market our own versions that we develop ourselves. And then perhaps we plug other features into it, different IP. So It's actually coming along quite nicely. The team, I check in with them each week. We've got a big review coming up once we get through mid-May with them. And we expect to be looking at test flight versions that are, potentially user-friendly. And the whole goal here, of course, is to allow our patients to connect with our medical doctors and practitioners in a seamless, easy, flexible way, because that type of technology is just absolutely the way the future of healthcare is operating.
Yeah, no, for sure. Everything is pretty much going online, and especially with COVID, it's definitely accelerated that as well. And so this advancement that social, like kind of like social media, like online presence for healthcare has been really, really exacerbated.
Well, you're completely right. In fact, but and even more importantly, to realize here is that the regulatory framework has changed. As an example, in Ontario through OHIP, they've now created billing codes, like allowable billing codes that have nothing to do with pandemic, for virtual care, for telemedicine, for remote care, for phone care. The United States has passed legislation in healthcare requiring health insurance companies to now formally accept these billing codes for practitioners for the utilization of virtual care and telemedicine. So it's much stronger than just, hey, it's been working through the pandemic and it's kind of temporary, not temporary. It's now moved to a really shifted regulatory framework. And I believe that's good for society and good for healthcare outcomes overall.
Yeah, no, definitely something that seems to be something that's like here to stay and going to be something that's universal on that part.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. So another question, what's the delay with the clinics that were talked about and supposed to be announced? We had kind of talked about them in our last video about how you said that there was that you guys had identified around like 6 to 8 more clinics, and that there was going to be an update on that shortly. Is that still coming along? Just can you speak on that?
Absolutely, and in fact, the number is now larger. Since we even last talked. All of this, I have a philosophy on this, or I have a position on this, and let me explain. And I'll explain the position and let me explain why. My views on this are, until we have a lease agreement, in hand, so what I mean by that is we've negotiated it with the landlord, and when you have multiple locations, you have multiple landlords. Some are easy to work with, some are not as easy to work with, and once those leases are in hand, then I want to announce those addresses. And we have a great group of followers. You have followers. We've got this Empower Army that's growing all the time. And these followers will Google the address. In some cases, they might do drive-bys of the locations. And that's positive. I mean, it's people want validation that if we've been offered locations in partnership with our pharmacy partners like Rexall, you want to do a Google search of the address and you want to kind of say, hey, clinic location, yep, there's the Rexall, and it all makes sense. So I felt that it was important not to send out that information too early for any fear of sort of jeopardizing our negotiations with the landlord. And so I just felt that it's important to do one step at a time. We don't control how fast a landlord gets back to us on clauses or changes that we might need or want as we're negotiating the lease. We certainly are not completely in control of our pharmacy partners and their turnaround time on locations. I can only reassure everybody that the relationship with the partners is the best it's ever been. It's tremendous. We are doing this for long-term partnership with them, not something that happens over a week or a month or a quarter. This is about years of relationship, and big relationships with big partners take time to nurture and develop. And, they move as fast as they move. I can tell you that Dr. Jordan and Dr. Aviv work so hard with the landlords and our lawyers who work on it with them. So we're all doing everything that we can. And maybe what ends up happening is it all kind of just comes flooding in at the same time, and we've got a flurry of announcements, and it'll be like, guys, I told everybody we're working on this stuff. It's not a joke. We're working hard on this stuff all the time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I mean, negotiating with the landlords can sometimes be a struggle, and just like lots of paperwork, and like you said,
oh yeah,
and so obviously, and you also don't want to, like you said, like kind of like shoot the gun like too soon, because then it gets people worried if they're like, oh, why isn't there like an Empower logo already up? Like, why is it still saying blah blah blah? And it's like, then you cause fear in the market, and fear in the market is probably like the worst thing. So
you're so right. We have a lot of factors that we influence. There's a lot of factors that, like you say, creates almost like disinformation, misinformation, and like a paranoia or fear that is not warranted. It fundamentally is not warranted. That's the whole point here. That's so often so strange about capital markets, especially when a public company at our stage of inflection, you have ups and you have downs, and you have ups and you have downs. And if you're in it, it's I know it's very difficult to see downs. Everybody loves the ups. I mean, come on, that's the easy part. The fortitude comes in recognizing where this is going, medium and long term, way beyond the short term, blips, whatever they may be. So I always remind myself of what we're doing long term. I always remind my team of what we're doing long term. So we understand that, but I respect the maybe the trepidation or insecurity that is sometimes created in short-term markets when they don't appear to be going in the right direction for whatever reason. And then you have a day, like today, where you're up 13%. You almost don't even know why. Great volume, and it's markets. They can be interesting to live with.
Yeah, no, I really like this. I heard this one thing in a video where it's the stock market is not the company, and the company is not. The company is not the stock, and the stock is not the company. Basically meaning that the stock could go up 300% and then down 500%, but nothing has changed about the company. The company is still the same. You guys as a company are most likely better than you have ever been. Yet when you look at the stock price, you have gone from 7 cents all the way up to 2.50, all the way back down to 50 cents. But when you're back up at $2.50, where you should be pretty much valuing it out, is basically you are now more advanced and more, like have way more like in the pipeline and everything, but you're still now down to 50 cents.
Yes. So it's very frustrating for a lot of us. You can imagine, kind of what my days are like, and we are sensitive to the influencers out there. We're sensitive to opinion. We pay attention to it. I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on, whether people know it or believe it or not, is us paying attention, trying to be transparent, try to be responsive. And we get, I process 400 emails a day. I have WhatsApp, I have text messages, I have people phoning me, emailing me, and that's just me. And then we've got our IR folks and who are trying to read, monitor, respond, calm, communicate. But I feel that it's what we should be doing. We are in an age of connectivity. We're in an age of YouTube channels that have followings and are respected, and people want to know or want to hear. And so I take the responsibility very seriously, and I'm sensitive to people's sensitivity, especially right now in times like this. And so as best I can, I within the guidelines, I'll try to share and reassure. And then when the signatures are there and I can shout to the rooftops, I'm going to be the first person to be all over media, sharing with everybody exactly one of our wins or successes or whatever new acquisition we're going to push forward and close on. And again, just know that we are in the best position that the company's ever been in its history. And so for what that's worth, everybody, I just ask for patience and confidence, especially when it feels like there's some nervous sentiment out there. Other than today was a real positive day, right? So,
yeah.
In the markets anyhow. So
yeah.
So we'll take it.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. And just another question, just to have an update, do you know roughly what the stock number is fully diluted? How many shares outstanding? Be diluted?
It should be about 340 right now,
Okay.
round numbers. I look at those reports, relatively regularly. We're obviously, in the final stages of our audit. So, we will have very accurate reporting, on that topic. But the numbers, if you go to the CSE.com or the CSE.com and take a look at our profile, you're going to have the most recent and accurate numbers there for our cap table.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. And then last question, and probably one of the most asked questions right now, is just when you think your audit's going to be done, and what has the delay been? I'm not sure if you can speak exactly on what the delay actually is, but just kind of give
Sure.
There's a little bit of a reasoning.
It's very, audits, as you can probably imagine, are very challenging. There's so many aspects of it that we don't control. We did 2 acquisitions in the fourth quarter, one closing at the very end of the fourth quarter. 2 private companies, one in the US, one in Canada, never been audited before, never been through these processes before. And in both cases, new IFRS accounting guidelines require us to do an independent third-party purchase price allocation modeling. So it's referred to in the audit world as a PPA. Whether they're a small company or a big company, that PPA process is the same. And it's essentially modeling out a minimum of 5 years, but in some cases 10 or even 15 years of potential cash flow forecasting, so that the auditors can agree with our accounting teams on how the purchase price of the acquisition should be allocated between tangible assets, intangible assets, debt as the case may be, and then finally goodwill. And it has to be done by an independent third party. It cannot be provided by us. So when you're in growth mode like we are, the positives are that you're growing. The downside is audit requirements are more difficult. Accounting requirements are more difficult. And no one is as disappointed as anyone as I am to have to go through these scenarios. We successfully applied for and got approved for the management cease trade order, which is a process I have to start, quite early, and it's very intensive with the commissions. And the reason that you do it is that in the event that you are going to be late filed, it means that the stock doesn't get halted, where all shareholders are affected. So the MCTO, or the management cease trade order, is a technical provision that I had to plan for. That means that I, as the CEO, Kyle, our CTO, are technically halted, and we are not allowed to buy, sell, do anything, with any equity we have. I'm a net holder anyhow, so it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if I'm halted. I'm just a net holder. But that's a technical requirement. But what it does, it protects shareholders, that the stock can freely trade with no limitations. And that's something that I'm proud that we at least worked through those very technical scenarios with the BC Securities Commission to protect shareholders' interests in this time. And so we are working round the clock right now to get this completed and get it filed. We control our first quarter, so we're again running two paths, simultaneously finishing up year-end audit, but at the same time completing first quarter. So they're gonna come out like right in sequence behind each other.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And just a quick question: when is your I think it's called is it called a blackout period, where like you as a CEO can't actually like sell anything nor buy anything? Is that what's called when it's a blackout?
Yeah, you're right. So we as a public company have an insider trading policy for that really govern what are called registered insiders. I, of course, am a registered insider. Our key directors are registered insiders. And so, we have blackout periods that a crude example would be if there's material information that, needs to be announced that, we know about that's coming. Obviously that should be a blackout period, by rule, right? We have to respect those rules. The blackout periods apply when you have quarterly and or year-end financials that are about to be announced, but are not yet announced. Those are technical blackout periods for sure.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so when does your blackout period end, basically? Or like when would you be able to sell, or when would you be able to buy more shares on the public market?
So I believe the blackout, depending on the type of the blackout period, the blackout commences before whatever the event is, like a quarterly filing, and I believe it also lasts 3 business days afterwards. But I'd have to double check that. But it's not the moment that the particular event is announced. It actually lasts longer than that, and so that prevents you from selling or buying. Like, it's not like one or the other. It's everything. You're not allowed to trade in the security, and so it's one of the important beneficial restrictions for shareholders is that registered insiders with insider knowledge, we've got rules to follow that we need to abide by, and so of course I'm very concerned about those, and I'm very particular about it, as I think everybody realizes.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much, Steve, for taking your time to do this interview. I know that you're busy working, doing meetings in Phoenix right now, which is super, super exciting. So I hope to talk to you again soon. Maybe once you guys get some more news coming. I know it's a super, super exciting time. So just thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, Landon, thank you. I appreciate your focus on us as well, and giving me a chance to answer some really serious, important questions from followers. I like this format and forum, and I will continue to use it. We've got a really interesting BNN piece that's coming out this weekend. You might have seen some social media stuff from us on that. I think there was a press release today from BTV sort of pre-announcing it. So it's a segment that I shot, and it also included Yoshi Tyler from Kai Labs. I think it's about a 4-minute piece that'll be going out. I believe it's this weekend, so everybody should look for that. I think it's pretty informative, and really talks more about where we're going in future. So look for that, and make sure you share it on with your followers.
Sounds good. Will do. Thanks so much, Steve.
Okay, thank you. Bye for now.
All right, take care.